Hello guys, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus for the first video of 2025. We're now continuing on with Championship score predictions. We made it to week 26. But after this game week, we actually have a tiny bit of time off because the week after is FA Cup weekend. So this is the last of the relentless batch of games all together. So guys, make sure once again to continue leaving your score predictions in the comments down below. The prediction league will be updated probably by the end of this week realistically, but I am keeping on top of it and you guys will see an update very soon. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. Please do hit the subscribe button too. It really does help, and please share the channel too. All three of these things are free to do and they really do help. Apologies if my voice again doesn't sound particularly great. I'm still recovering from a flu, I think, but show must go on and I'm going to try my best to go through these games today. Without any further ado, let's start predicting week 26 for the Championship. Start off with a big game. We've got Blackburn and Burnley going head to head. Both were involved in a draw last time around. So Blackburn were involved with a 1-1 draw with Leeds. And I think when you considered Blackburn's two games with Leeds and Burnley back to back, the fact they've already picked up a point from that, Blackburn are getting points in games that maybe they've not expected to get points from, but Blackburn have been a nuisance with the big teams, or at least the teams really performing well in the Championship so far this season. They seem to have a really good game plan in those games, which is why I think they could have a good chance against Burnley here, where they came off the back with 2 0-0 draws in a row, the most recent one against Stoke City. Certainly, I think they should have scored at least one of the chances that they've created. They did create quite a fair bit against Stoke. They will be out Hannibal Mabry because he got sent off when he did get substituted on, but I don't think, unfortunately for him, it's going to be a major loss because he hasn't really been starting many games at all for Burnley. It's just a squad player that Burnley will be missing. Last time around, both of these sides were involved in a 1-1 draw, and I remember it because it was when Andy Vyman equalised to make it 1-1, and Blackburn went down to 10 men themselves and actually survived, I think, a good half and a bit down to 10 men, and he managed to still salvage a point. So the fact they've already done this before to Burnley, there's no reason why they can't do it again. As a prediction, I think Blackburn will prevent Burnley getting 3 points here, and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think Burnley just, again, they're going through a stage now where they're now struggling to score goals again, and Blackburn, we've seen it way too many times that they just know how to get results against these really good sides in the Championship. Let me know what you think though in the comments. Next up, we've got Stoke going up against Plymouth. When they last met, I do remember it quite vividly. It was a 1-0 away victory to Stoke City. A pretty important away win when they got it in that point of the season. And this was when Plymouth were actually looking rather good at home. It was a rare home defeat for them. Both going into this game, Stoke, of course, as I just mentioned, sustained Burnley to a draw and actually did have some chances to potentially take all 3 points, but I certainly think the draw was the fairest result for that game when things happened. Plymouth also were involved in a draw, and in fact, a more impressive fashion, they got from behind twice to equalise the game against Bristol City. I think certainly that home form is going to be Plymouth's biggest reason why they could still avoid a drop. But right now, Plymouth need to really start picking up their away form as soon as possible. They now have a bit of a gap to try and breach, to try and get away from the bottom 3. And if they don't start picking up these away points now, it is going to be so much more difficult for Plymouth to get results. They are still looking for a permanent manager. Stoke, of course, have now got one in Mark Robins. I do think it'll be a bit harsh to really put all the pressure on Mark Robins on this first game. I think certainly with the fact that you've got the FA Cup and just a little bit of a break between this game week and the next game week, I think that will be more appropriate if we can see if Mark Robins has managed to improve the squad in any way. But as a prediction, I think it's going to be Stoke that pick up all 3 points here. Only just though. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Stoke City. A rare away goal for Plymouth, but I do think it will be a pretty tight ordeal in this game. Next up, we've got Swansea going up against West Brom. Both sides with very different results last time around. Swansea were involved in a 4-0 defeat to Portsmouth. It was certainly a stark contrast to what they have been doing in the past couple of weeks now. It was one of those rare ones where I just think Portsmouth just really gave him something extra to think about with their away form. And certainly it was a bit of a mysterious performance for Swansea. We haven't seen that way too often for the Swansea City side whatsoever, but it is back-to-back defeats for Swansea now, so they've got a little bit to try and work on, and I think certainly they're one of the sides that are struggling to deal with a really tight turnaround in terms of games. West Brom were involved in a win against Preston, a 3-1 victory, and actually I thought first half they were superb. They commanded themselves in a 3-0 lead. I think second half they did put their foot off the gas a little bit, probably thinking the game was done, being 3-0 up. They did concede one goal in the end with Ryan Ledson scoring for Preston, but overall it was certainly a deserved win for West Brom. Now going into this game, I know last time around it was West Brom that picked up all 3 points in the end. I think it was Jason Malumba who actually got the only goal for West Brom last time around. This time around, I see it being really, really tight, to be honest, and I think I'm leaning towards a draw. Swansea been doing okay at home. West Brom showing probably a little bit of patches of inconsistency still, and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game. But honestly, if any of them pick up a 1-goal win, it wouldn't surprise me either. I think it's a really, really close one, actually. We made it to the first of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. Let's go for Bristol City and Derby first. Derby will remember that the reverse fixture is actually one of their better performances of the season, beating Bristol City by 3-0. And we've seen this a couple of times with Bristol City, but away from home, they do concede quite a lorry load of goals. However, it's been their home form, Bristol City, that has taken them up to the top half of the table pretty comfortably. And it was a bit of a mad game last time around for Bristol City, being involved in a 2-2 draw with Plymouth. They'll be very disappointed with the fact they took the lead twice and just could not capitalise on that lead. Derby themselves, obviously, very, very recently played against Leeds and lost out on that one. And then they lost out again, this time to Sheffield Wednesday by 4-2. Another mad game. So both sides were involved in a pretty bonkers game last time around. We'll see if things calm down here, but honestly, as a prediction, I do back Bristol City's home form a little bit more than I do with Derby with their away form. As a prediction, therefore, I'm going to go for a 2-1 home victory to Bristol City. I think it'll be tight, but I think Bristol City have just about got enough going for them in their home games that will lead them to 3 points here. But I do think it will be a pretty close one here. Next up, we see Hull going up against Leeds United. This, I think, will be intriguing to see how they get on this time around. So last time around, it was a 2-0 victory to Leeds against these two sides. It was a very comfortable win. I think I actually correctly predicted that as well. It was certainly one of those ones where Hull were having a slow start to the season, and it really showed that they were looking a little bit unprepared. Leeds were starting to improve their home form, and now for what we see with both of these sides, we're seeing a Leeds side where it can definitely be told that they are one of the best sides in the league, despite losing a lot of quality that they inherited last season. But a little bit of that doubt crept in terms of their last game out against Blackburn, when they only were able to hold them to a 1-1 draw. It took to the 88th minute before they actually got a goal, with Stroich managing to score from the penalty spot. So are Leeds now starting to get a little bit of what Burnley are having, struggling to find these chances? Because it is very, very reasonable to think that Hull are going to make it very difficult to break down. And Ruben Sellers has actually really improved Hull not conceding so many goals now. So I can really see this game being pretty low scoring. They were involved in a narrow 1-0 defeat to Middlesbrough. It was devastating for them, for the fact that they conceded a goal as late as the 89th minute. That would have been a monumental point. Every point now really does mean something in terms of the relegation battle, and to lose out on any points whatsoever, it's devastating for them. But they're wanting to try and use that encouragement with the 88 minutes to try and apply that here. But as a prediction, I do think the forward players that Leeds have, they'll look at that Blackburn game knowing that they weren't good enough and they need to go for it again here. I'm going to go for the same result as it was previously, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Leeds. But I wouldn't be surprised if Hull do get a result though, because I think they have been improving rather steadily under Ruben Sellers. Next up we've got Middlesbrough and Cardiff. Interesting to pull these two sides together. Last time around it was a 2-0 victory between the two of them in favour of Middlesbrough. I think a score I also correctly predicted as well. Clearly had a good week in the prediction league that week. But going into this game here, Middlesbrough were off the back of a 1-0 win over Hull, considering they were, I'd say, below par for most of the game, to still snatch 3 points in the way that they did. Great result, and it does mean that they are within the top 6, following results going in their favour. Cardiff were involved in a draw against Coventry, which I correctly predicted last week. However, they are not going to have Callum Robinson available in this game as a result of that. And that is a pretty big loss, because I do think attacking-wise, it certainly is one of their better players. And I will say with Coventry, they really had so many big chances to win that game. But Cardiff will look at that and thinking that they will be so proud to actually keep the game to a draw. And could they bring that confidence here? Maybe. But as a prediction, realistically, I think with the confidence that Middlesbrough are showing, they're now going on a bit of an unbeaten run in the league. I think I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory to Middlesbrough. I see them getting a lot more chances, and it's just a question whether Cardiff can hit back. I just don't think they're going to hit back effectively enough, unfortunately, for them. Next up, we've got Norwich and Coventry going head-to-head. And I will say about these two sides, they've been two rather inconsistent sides in the league all season. So I do think it does make it a little bit harder to predict both of these sides in terms of when they go head-to-head. Now, last time when they faced each other, it was a Norwich win, actually. It was a 1-0 away victory to Norwich, and it certainly was a game that put a lot of pressure on Mark Robins early on in the season, and definitely pointed things that were not quite right with that Coventry squad. And what did show in that game last time around was their forward players just lacking in confidence and not taking their chances. Now, what I will say, Norwich are stuck with their manager, and they have gone on a little bit of an unbeaten run now, unbeaten in their last 3 games, but I do think there still is that element of inconsistency there. Coventry, of course, have changed managers, have now adopted under Frank Lampard, also going through a bit of an unbeaten run, but 2 draws in a row, and certainly 2 games there. Coventry could have looked at it thinking they probably should have got more than 2 points out of 2 against Millwall and Cardiff respectively. This for me is a much tougher affair here. I do think Coventry could get a chance to score a goal, but it's just a question, can they defensively keep Norwich out? Because we do know the attacking talents of that Norwich squad. Prediction, it's tough. You know, Norwich are coming off the back of a good win against Luton. I think they might be able to carry it across here as well. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Norwich, but I do think it'll be a close one. And honestly, if Coventry sustain them to a draw, or even if they win themselves, I wouldn't be surprised. I do think it's a really close one, but let me know what you think as well in the comments. Next up, we've got Preston and Oxford. I mean, what a revitalisation for Oxford. 3 wins in a row for Gary Rowett's first 3 games as Oxford manager. He has certainly come in a big way for Oxford, and they needed him more than ever. They now have some breathing space between them and the bottom 3, which is huge. But Preston themselves have been improving, especially with their home form as well. But it did go crashing back down to earth in their last game against West Brom when they lost out by 3-1. Telling me that Preston have sort of got their home form nailed on, but they need to work on picking up more away points. Now, this will be interesting here. Could Preston force Gary Rowett's first defeat as Oxford manager here? What I've been really impressed with since, you know, Gary Rowett has come in is actually how they've improved defensively. Preston will be going into this with a little bit of confidence with their last couple of home performances. A good win against Sheffield Wednesday last time around in their home games. Last time around when these two sides faced each other, it was a win for Oxford. It was actually one of the few times they scored more than 3 goals in a game. It was a 3-1 victory to Oxford after Preston actually took the lead very early on. As a prediction, I think it's actually going to be... it's a tough one, this, honestly. I'm going to go for a 2-0 home victory to Preston. I think their home form is certainly proving, you know, a bit of a strong point for Preston's season at the moment. It's just a question, could Gary Rowett find another way to get a win for Oxford? I'll be amazed if he does. But honestly, I do think it's going to be a 2-0 win to Preston though. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up, we've got Sheffield Wednesday versus Millwall. So, with Sheffield Wednesday, I've been a little bit encouraged with their form, with the exception of their recent defeat against Preston. The other times that they have played, I've been rather impressed with Sheffield Wednesday, and I'm glad that they're actually really improving their home form. That is a big factor which I was leading to believe that, you know, if they weren't going to get up to the top 6, would be a big factor to why they wouldn't, which would have been their poor home form. But they're now starting to turn the screw and starting to get these results at home. Mill, on the other hand, they're going through a pretty substantial winless run. I think only Plymouth have got a longer winless run than Millwall currently. And as a result, Millwall's position in the table is slowly deteriorating. They're down to the bottom half now in the table. And they are not a million miles away of getting dragged into the relegation fight. Now, Alex Neil obviously did have his first game as Millwall boss against Oxford. It was also a recently new manager coming in with Gary Rowett. But I do think, again, likewise with Mark Robbins, they were both appointed at a similar time and they would have had very little impact and time to put their stance on things. I'm going to certainly keep my views and judgment of them when they have a transfer window, because obviously it's now January, and when they can actually have a couple of weeks to implement their tactics and their plans and just how they're going to tweak the system. So it's hard to put into thoughts of how each manager is doing at the moment without really any concrete evidence so far. As a prediction here, I think it's going to be Sheffield Wednesday's game. So they'll be able to get revenge because Millwall beat them by 3-0 last time around. I think it's going to be a 2-0 home victory to Sheffield Wednesday. They're looking very confident at home at the moment, and I think that will carry through here, and that will be a pretty tough start for Alex Neil as Millwall manager. Next up, we got Watford and Sheffield United going head-to-head now. Both sides with their recent form being a little bit disappointing, and both will be wanting to try and start 2025 in a much better form of fashion. So Watford have been involved with 3 games without a win now, and it is a defeat on their part last time around too. It was a pretty disappointing one against QPR to lose that by 3-1. Sheffield United have also been in a winless run, but I will give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. They have played some way tougher teams. Like, their form recently has been absolutely just relentless. That's all I can say. To have Burnley, West Brom and Sunderland back to back is not easy, and Watford is not entirely straightforward either, considering how Watford have managed to make Vicarage Road a little bit of a fortress. It's only been Cardiff recently that have managed to pick up a result there. Sheffield United are going to have to do something that only Cardiff have really been able to do, which is to pick up 3 points here. Now, what I will say with Sheffield United, because they faced these sides right up there in the table and then being in the wrong end of those results, it has meant that the top 4 is a lot more competitive, a lot more condensed. That win for Sunderland has actually re-entered them into the fight of promotion, and it does put Sheffield United in a bit of danger if they cannot pick up their form. So a lot of impact and a lot of eyes will be on this game. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I can't make my mind up who I think will win this one. I know last time around was a 1-0 win to Sheffield United. Daniel Batman with a lone goal in the first couple of minutes in the game. I think it's going to end up as a draw this time around. And honestly, that would be a little bit of a positive response for Watford, where Tom Cleverley quite rightfully called out their recent performances. I think they will show a little bit of fight going into this game here. Our penultimate game sees Sunderland going up against Portsmouth. This, I think, is quite an exciting one to predict. So, what I will say going into this one, both with brilliant results last time around. Sunderland beating Sheffield United by 2-1. They had a bit of a scare when Kiefer Moore had the penalty, but it was well saved in the end. And they managed to pull off a really, really good win on their hands. A 2-1 win. All 8 goals actually happened, I should say 3 goals, happened in 8 minutes. Could you imagine 8 goals? So 3 goals happened in 8 minutes in that game. So all the action really happened all at once. And then the game sort of died out a little bit. But it was brilliant game management from Sunderland to hold out for that win, and that does really re-enter them into the position in the table. And I did mention in my score predictions, if Sunderland want to be competitive with a chance of getting promoted, they had to beat Sheffield United, and lo and behold they did. They passed the test, which is telling me that I think Sunderland will be competitive right to the end of the season. Portsmouth have shown that they have really cracked it in terms of their home form, at least within the Championship, to beat Swansea by 4-0, where Swansea have been a particularly difficult side to get results against. Is no easy feat, and you should give a lot of praise for Portsmouth for doing that. But what I will say going into this game, their away form hasn't certainly been as strong as their home form. And last time around, Sunderland did get a good result against Portsmouth last time around, a 3-1 win, and actually could have been a clean sheet had Nuko 9 not conceded an own goal near the end of the game. As a prediction, I think it'll be Sunderland again with the win. I think they're looking pretty confident at the moment. I'm going to go for a 2-1 home victory to Sunderland, and that should really put some pressure now on the top 4 to get a result. Considering I've predicted Burnley not to pick up 3 points here, it does make things really, really interesting for the coming couple of game weeks or so. And our last game to predict is QPR and Luton Town. Goodness me, could Luton Town do with a win right now? So I do remember the reverse fixture. It was actually QPR's first win of the season. It was a 2-1 victory on their part, and it took them quite a fair bit of time to get their next win after that. It was really had been that solitary win that has actually meant that QPR weren't going to go for the season and for the time being, completely winless. But Luton need it more than ever. By direct contrast, QPR have kicked on since that game week and have really started to hit new highs. They could really end up being in the top half of the table at the rate that they're going at the moment. They're doing really, really well with their form. A brilliant win again against Watford this time around by 3-1. Luton. I don't know what to say, but one thing I will say, which may shock you, Luton have actually lost the most games out of any Championship club this season, even more than Plymouth, with 14 defeats in 25 matches. That is pretty bad. It really is really bad. If they do not pick up a win anytime soon, they will start getting dragged back in the midst of the relegation battle. And there has been lots of pressure on Rob Edwards, and I'm not surprised, because Luton could maybe afford to go down to the Championship for a couple of seasons to try and regroup. They certainly would not have forecasted back-to-back relegations. And right now, with the bottom 4 or 5 picking up the odd point, you can see Cardiff, Hull, Portsmouth when they're at home picking up these points. It really does put the pressure on Luton Town to think really logically, can they survive this season with the way that they're playing? And right now, they certainly have a squad way too good to go down, but they're not churning in those performances into points. And as a prediction here, based on the fact that QPR have really started to now have some confidence at home, I think it's going to be another home win for QPR. I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory to QPR. Luton are looking a little bit defensively shoddy, and QPR are finding the ball in the back of the net quite effectively. So there's no reason for me to go back on a QPR win. Let me know what you think though in the comments down below. So guys, that is the end of my score predictions. If you guys enjoyed it, please do smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. Please do hit the subscribe button too. It really helps. And please also share the channel too. All 3 of these things are free to do, and they really, really do help. There may be a stream on the horizon this weekend, so keep your eyes peeled if I do make an appearance. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you're studying this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care everyone and enjoy the rest of 2025.